Hello, welcome to a very special version of the Weekly Jam. And before too long, we have to bring in Peter. So let's do it. Hello, Peter.
Hey, Brad.
This is a do-over intro of the Weekly Jam. And the reason it's special today is because it's the first ever GBL Symposium. Tell us about that, Peter, if you wouldn't mind. Oh, where are we up to in the term?
Yeah, well, week 5, 20th of August, Symposium. Don't shoot the syllabi, which we're pretty pumped about. We've had 3 jams so far. We've got a couple to go. And we're excited about today. It's going to form the basis of our community, people that are joining new. And we're pretty pumped to hear from each state. And got people on the line. So let's get into it.
Amazing. So first up, well, there's all of us. Let's go around. Would you take us around the screen, Peter?
Yes. Well, you're Brad Fuller. I'm Peter Einstein, and to my right is Chris Hollier. Welcome, Chris. Who are you, and where do you come from?
I'm Chris. I come from Westside Christian College in Goodna, Queensland, and I'm a guitar player. That's what I like to do, and I teach occasionally and do other stuff as well.
And how long have you been teaching in Queensland?
Teaching in Queensland for about 23 years, and had a few different roles in that time. Pretended to be a business teacher for a little while, pretended to be a technologies teacher for a little while. But yeah, really just music teacher. And I'm doing a bit of a digital technologies role in an administrative capacity at the moment as well.
That's our favourite saying, just a music teacher. We like to say that too, to everyone. Just lower the expectations.
Best thing you could be.
Exactly.
Good. All right. Going around, I'm going to go to the bottom left. Chandra, welcome.
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm Chandra Hale. I'm from Moama Anglican Grammar, which is on the border of New South Wales and Victoria. So we just scrape into New South Wales. I'm the head of creative arts down here, and I've been teaching music in different areas in the New South Wales area for about 20 years as well. I play a French horn in my spare time, which, is not very common. Thankfully, there are a few orchestras nearby, so I can toot my horn a little bit.
Killer. And MOAM. So MOAM is almost in Victoria, but we're going to just call you a New South. Yeah. Good. All right. Well, welcome to today's jam, and we're going to keep moving to the middle bottom. Rob, where do you come from? What do you do?
Everyone.
How long have you been in Victoria for?
A very long time, actually. I've been teaching in Victoria for 17 years. I have been teaching vet music mainly for the last 12 or 15, and I've just recently picked up a sound production role, which is lots of fun. Going to the dark side, behind the desk, fixing the mixes.
Nice. Good. And we'll hear from you in a few weeks' time. I believe week 7. We'll hear from you and further about your space. So pretty excited about that. So thanks for being here. And lastly, we have Josh. Tell us about yourself.
My name's Josh Cowley. I am also just a music teacher. And I've been teaching for probably just a bit over 15 years now. My current position is music leader at Adelaide Botanic High School, but I've taught in country schools, city schools, different things. I come from a background of jazz performance, but have eked out a career as a music producer and in film and TV for a while before becoming a teacher. So that kind of has informed my practices with technology in the classroom.
Holy moly. I lost count of the number of years of experience we've got in the room today, but that's pretty blooming impressive. I have a few up my sleeve. Peter, I believe you've been in the classroom once or twice as well.
Yeah, just dabble.
All right. So that's everyone. So let's get into the set list and what we're up to. So don't shoot the syllabi set list. We have some guiding questions that we put out to the community, and so I'll run that through so that as you're playing along at home, think about this, because as we've said, 10 minutes of presentation, 5 minutes of jamming, and then at the end we'll turn the live stream off and we'll do some community jamming as well. Okay, so then guiding questions. When read creatively and critically, does your syllabus reveal itself to be flexible and forward-thinking? Is it aligned with musically meaningful student-centered practices? Does it use language that prioritizes lifelong learning, creativity, active musicking, and student agency with flexibility in content and context? Is it possible to deliver your syllabus as a creative act, an opportunity for pedagogical judgment and musical expertise? And so we've talked about 10 minutes of presentation. And so we've asked the presenters, it's not a presentation, it's just literally reading the syllabus and reflecting aloud using the guiding questions and the orienting criteria below. And so we're trying to work out, can we work with, not against, each syllabus, reading between the lines where necessary to find support for authentic, meaningful musicking and student agency for human flourishing. And the idea is that we run it through the syllabus tester, taking off what might be the old glasses of compliance and putting on the new glasses of creativity and agency. And we've asked our people to highlight in their own way phrases that invite activity, agency, creativity, care, collaboration, flexibility, and flourishing. But they're all individuals and they might find their own way through it. So this is the first time I'm aware that anybody's ever done this before, so I'm sure we'll know a lot more by the time we finish. And Peter, why are we doing this?
Yeah, well, we're laying the foundations for our community of practice, and that's turned out to be a national one, and even crossing over into NZ. And so we seek to develop an understanding of each other's state contexts and make that insight available to new members as they join, / anyone that's watching this currently on YouTube. We hope to jam at a level relevant to, but above our syllabi in a way that has direct application to each unique context. So that's pretty exciting. We're going to invite our first cat to the table. And which state will it be? It's not a battle of the states, but I think we need a drum roll. It's Queensland.
I feel like, and the winner is.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris.
Chris.
Hey.
Okay, so any minute now, depending on how this all goes, we'll start the timer, and you have the floor. And depending on whether we remember to mute our microphones, it's all yours for 10 minutes. We'll get in touch with about a minute to go-ish and let you know. All right? Okay. Good luck.
All right. Well, let's get into it. No time to waste. So what are the awesome things we can get out of it? How do we make the syllabus work for us? To borrow some phrases from Brad and Pete. And I've also borrowed some of Brad's approaches. So I've got blue and red. There may even be a little bit of green that's snuck in there. And my approach, my perspective is that what we've got in Queensland is something that's quite flexible, dynamic, and personal. To make things a little complicated in Queensland, we've decided not to really do much of our own stuff, but rather take it from Akara. So we can't really download a PDF. We've got it all developed and delivered to us just through a web browser. And that's kind of how we also engage with Australian curriculum. So I know that Josh might overlap with some of this stuff. So let's just quickly shoot through some of the Australian curriculum stuff. And basically, you've just got to print to PDF to make this work, which is what I've done. So first of all, from the rationale, I really like that in blue, it tells us that it's about sharing music and ideas. And it's about building knowledge and enhancing empathy, which I think is really cool stuff to have right at the very start of an arts, particularly music syllabus. And again, music learning is about recognizing music's contribution in shaping identity and the ability to explore personal, local, and global issues and ideas. Again, I think that's pretty cool. Carrying on, its ability to transform the heart, soul, mind, and spirit of individuals and communities. All really cool stuff. Following on with the aims, students, music is going to develop their confidence to be creative, innovative, thoughtful, skillful, and informed musicians. Ooh, a little bit of red there. Listening with intent and purpose. Aesthetic knowledge, I've got to think about those a little bit more. But then ultimately to acquire skills and become independent music learners. That's pretty cool stuff. Music in Australian curriculum and thus in Queensland is then broken into 4 different domains. So exploring and responding, developing practices and skills, creating and making, presenting and performing. When we look at exploring and responding, it wants to have diverse examples, not limited examples, but diverse. I think that's great. Also, in developing practices and skills, it's about play, imagination, experimentation, creative and critical thinking and practice. I think that's also pretty cool. Creative skills and confidence and critical skills for listening. Moving on to creating and making. Well, it talks about having music-specific or multi-arts creative processes. And I think that collaboration is one of the most important things that we should be building in our young people in the 21st century. So it's right there at the start in creating and making. And also compose in forms and styles of interest with relevance. So it's got to be relevant to the students, not something that's disconnected from them and their context. So I think that's also pretty cool. And then finally, presenting and performing. And I put a big red box around this one because I think it's really cool that it's about the students planning, selecting, and designing about their presentations and performance, not us, the teachers. So about giving them a little bit of voice in that space. Now, from the AC 9.0, we also have key considerations. That's the elements of music, music practices and listening, music practices for composing, performing, and responding. Now, I thought this was interesting. Notating, documenting, and or recording. Well, what is the purpose of that? What's the point and why? And I really like that it is to preserve music for future use in blue there. So why do we document it? Why do we record it? It's so that other people can learn from it or listen to it and enjoy and experience it down the track, which I think is pretty cool. We get into some level descriptors for year 7 and 8, which is what we're focusing on in this symposium. And I like that it's about building on each student's prior learning and experiences. Now, a student might take music in year 7 or in year 8 and might have had no formal experiences, but there's still something that we can build on because they've engaged with music at some point in time in their life. I also like that it talks to multi-arts and transdisciplinary or hybrid forms of music, which is pretty cool. And the idea that we're trying to expand their awareness of diversity and of music practices, genres, and styles. So it's not about completely reshaping their minds, but it's about expanding it. I'm going to have to really fly because it's already up to 5 minutes and 20 seconds left. All right, so I'm just going to skip through that. It's all about the achievement standard that we're trying to actually work towards. So at the end of year 7 and 8, we should see qualities of this particular achievement standard in the work that they have created. So by the end of year 8, students analyse how the elements of music and compositional devices are manipulated, the music they compose, perform, or experience. They evaluate, they describe, and this is in red. I've still got to think about this. This is a new syllabus that we're using for the first time in our school this year. They describe respectful approaches to composing, performing, and or responding to music. I'm just not quite sure what I think about that yet. They demonstrate listening and oral skills when composing and performing. I like oral skills as about actually doing something that's meaningful and practical. Now, this is where I love the flexibility. So in the next couple of slides, I'm pointing out the use of the phrase such as. So often we read syllabuses or syllabi as things that we have to do, but a lot of the language such as means that, well, maybe there's things that you could choose to do or things that you choose not to do. So we have investigating and trialing ways of realizing stylistic features such as distortion, decay, delay, etc. And I think that they're cool things to look at, but maybe there's a longer list that's not included. We also have interpreting music such as graphic or interactive scores, staff notation, or tablature. And there's some more things like such as and also for example. Often interpreted as must, but it's not. Now to the Queensland specific stuff. So what Queensland has done is they've taken the ICARA syllabus and broken it down into useful tools to help teachers unpack it. And again, we can see some really cool uses of words. So this particular resource can be used as a resource to support curriculum planning, but it might not need to be. It can be. We have this document here, which links a whole bunch of the descriptors from ICARA with certain things that they do. And moving on, we also have may. So we have this assessment and techniques and conditions document, and it talks to this may involve using a process to solve a problem or to inform new actions. Not it has to. I think that's cool. And if you're paying attention there, Brad in particular, if you see that there's a little bit of green there, it could be used to achieve range and balance within an assessment program. I think that's pretty cool. Some more examples from the document as you scroll down, some more examples of may. And we also have at the bottom, suggested length. So when it talks to how long a composition should be or a performance or short response or examination, it's all suggested. And one of my gripes has been, if you can only do a composition that's 30 seconds long or 12 bars long, what if you've got more to say? What if you actually have a whole song that you want to write? Can't you do that? Well, it's only suggested. So sure, let's write a whole song or maybe perform a whole song, not just 30 seconds of it. Year 7 and 8, standard elaborations. In blue there, a folio of student work across the year band. Doesn't need to be just one piece of assessment or 3, it could be 10. And at the bottom there, underlined in red, coverage of the achievement standards across the year or band. So we have the whole 2 years to actually work towards achieving that particular standards elaboration. And just a note for Queensland, we mark on a 5-point scale, A through to E. And in Queensland, the achievement standard represents the C standard. So if you do what the syllabus says as an achievement standard, you get a C. That means that if you do more than the achievement standard, you can get an A or a B. And likewise, if you do less, you can get a D or an E. And we use words like discerning or informed or description or identification to distinguish between those things. Just a note about these rubrics, they are just a starting point. Queensland wants us to actually modify these to be appropriate to tasks that we are actually setting and what we want those tasks to look like. And finally, let's see if I can get through this in 37 seconds. These are, again, from ICARA, examples of knowledge, skills, and music. They're not definitive. And I'm just going to quickly skip down to this stuff where it talks about music documentation. And again, it's gives you a little bit of an option there. So reflection, I like a lot of it. Some of it I'm still a bit, and you might have seen something that you missed, let me know. That'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Holy moly, that was fantastic.
On fire.
Lots of blues and greens and that was all the colours of the rainbow there. So
yep.
let's make it. Oh, actually, we made a nice slide. Did we see that? Yes. So this is the questions, comments, observations, or encouragements moment. And so we'll bring Chris back on screen, and we have a 5-minute timer that I'll set just in case. But let's throw it open to the floor. Or Peter.
Yeah, I'll start. There's so many good things about that syllabus, particularly how it is flexible, and there's lots of similarities between the New South Wales one and Queensland one, for example. I'm curious though, what do you feel constrained by the most? There's lots of things that are really cool, but when push comes to shove and the things that you have to do, they don't necessarily agree with. Are there any of those big ones for you?
Look, I really don't think so. I think it comes down to maybe a head of department or a curriculum leader interpreting some of those such as, or could be, or examples of, and interpreting them as must-dos. And yeah, I think that that's what we've encountered in the past. And I certainly see evidence in my own practice over the years of applying interpretation in that way. But yeah, I think that certainly for myself, it's always been a challenge of what do I actually want to do? And referring to your video that I watched yesterday afternoon, I think very much comes back to also what the teacher feels competent in and what their interests and skills are. Because I know when I started, in senior, we had a very different syllabus. One of the things that had to happen was an oral skills exam that required 2-part notation. And I'm like, I can't play 2 parts on a piano at the same time. Sibelius is going to help me do that. But it was really stressful, and also feeling like I'm an imposter in that situation. But I think for our current situation, and this speaks really to our senior syllabus in Queensland as well, that maybe we'll do another day, but they are very, very generous and very flexible documents. And there's nothing that dictates the style of music that you have to do, the way that you do it in, the way that you break it down into larger pieces of assessment, or like, across a portfolio, which is, I think, the way I'm leaning towards at the moment. Maybe the only thing that's a little bit challenging is where it's asking you to speak to First Nations property ownership. And I'm not really sure what that really means or what that looks like. It's not something that's actually required to be assessed specifically, but it's supposed to be covered. So it's like kind of like copyright law overlaid with understanding cultural heritage for our First Nations peoples. And I feel very inequipped to work in that space. I want to do it well. And it's very much outside of anything that I ever did when I was at uni as a musician or as a teacher training person. So it's outside of our wheelhouse. And I feel it's been kind of placed into the arts syllabi, so not just music, but across all of the arts in the Australian curriculum, maybe by bureaucrats that are well-meaning, but maybe it's not the right place to put it. Certainly not without support from maybe humanities or SOS or something like that, that maybe are a little bit better equipped to speak into that space.
Right. That's good.
We have a question from the floor. What are the hours for 7 and 8 in Queensland?
Oh, I actually don't know that I could answer that question off the top of my head. I know that it's a big mathematical equation to make things fit. I can tell you that at the moment in year 7, in 8, which I'm teaching, in a week, we'll have 3 50-minute periods. And then we'll roughly have 10 weeks per term, or 19 weeks per semester. In real terms, you could probably cut about 3 or 4 of those weeks off for other things that happen, like sport.
Gemini told me 55 hours for each of the 4 units. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would equal 200 hours? Is that?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. Across 2 years, yeah. Appreciating that it's an elective for us in Queensland as well, so we're not mandated to teach music from year 7 and 8. It can be any of the arts disciplines. So that may be music at drama, visual art, media arts, dance, etc.
A nice comment there. I reckon the may and could are a double-edged sword in Queensland, so flexible, yet everything means nothing to me. Yeah, and I think that gets us back to that those guiding questions, doesn't it, about agency and pedagogical decision-making, and the opportunities for teachers and students to take charge of their own destinies.
Absolutely, and I think Queensland is such a large state in terms of its geographical area. So Students that are learning in Weipa or up in Cairns or far north Queensland have a very different cultural understanding to those of us that are in southeast Queensland. Even in Brisbane, we talk about us being a large country town compared to Sydney or Melbourne. So I think that our engagement with the arts needs to reflect our communities, and having a syllabus that provides that flexibility and doesn't dictate levels of proficiency. The example I like to use is you could take a master musician like a Keith Jarrett and ask him to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and he's going to do it in a way that's very, very different to the way that a brand new student in year 8 who's never played an instrument before. But it doesn't mean that we have to give them repertoire that's really, really hard. We can actually give them something that they can engage with, and then they can play in a way that's dynamic and interesting for the audience. So, I think sometimes we want to have, well, you have to play this level of difficulty like an AABB syllabus might look. But the reality is we have students that might start music in year 10 and never have learnt formal music before that and are just kind of interested in jamming. And they shouldn't be disqualified from participating because we have something in the syllabus that restricts their entry to it. A beginner musician can still learn to move an audience through emotionally in the way that they engage with what they're playing.
Yes. And as D&M would say, feelingfully. I think that's one of their favourites. I found myself, as you were reading, I found myself getting excited about the bits you were picking out, just as I got excited when I put my glasses on and read the old syllabus. So thanks, Chris. That's given us a really great place to start, and we'll have some time to come back once we've been around the grounds to the others as well. So, Peter?
Yes, time for another drum roll.
Who's next?
Here we go. It's New South Wales.
New South Wales, not biased.
And it's not a competition, except we are working out. I've got realestate.com open right now, seeing which state to move to by the end of today's session. So please make New South Wales proud. I wouldn't like to move unnecessarily.
Well, don't shoot the syllabus, Peter, or the syllabus presenter.
Yes.
All right, Chandra. Thanks for putting your hand up for New South Wales. Shall we start the timer?
Go for it.
All right, you're on.
Alrighty, so this is a brand new syllabus for many music teachers in New South Wales. It actually starts being implemented next year. However, a lot of schools are starting to do it this year, and my school, we've kind of been dabbling with it, my school being me, since I'm the only music teacher in this school. But it's quite different to the previous one. So it's a little bit different to get your head around it. And the way that it is laid out is very different as well. So I've got a Google Doc version of it, but you can get it on the curriculum side in New South Wales. And it is similar to that ACARA, that it's all hosted on an online platform now, and you can click your tabs that way and choose whether you want to download part of it or the entire thing. So I'm just going to kind of go through a few different areas that I've in this syllabus, because it's quite a large document. We're quite a bit lucky. I do remember back when the Australian curriculum was being rolled out and New South Wales was like the stalwart people going, no, we will not have it in music. We will not have it in visual arts. And it is because of this one thing here that everyone was up in arms about, and that is our course requirements. So to meet the mandatory curriculum requirements in New South Wales for music, everybody in year 7 and 8 has to do 100 hours of music in year 7 and 8. Now, in some schools, this can be a continuous throughout year 7 and 8 at a particular time per week. Like, for example, at my school, we have 4 periods of year 7 in a cycle. So they're 2-week cycles, so 2 lessons a week. And in year 8, we have 3 lessons over 2 weeks, and that's for the whole year. But I've also been at schools where they do semesterized units. So they do about 50 hours a year, and they do 50 hours a semester for year 7 and 50 hours a semester for year 8. But that does open up a little bit more for us and a little bit more flexibility in terms of the skills that we can implement in Year 7 and Year 8. And in addition to that, a lot of schools that I've worked at also have elective options in Year 8, kind of like taster courses for the kids to kind of pick and choose which electives they want to do in Year 9. And so we can get a little bit more music out there as well. So it is a bit of compliance that you have this, and obviously by the time you get to term 3, term 4 in Year 8, there are some people pushing against the bounds of having to do music, but there's a lot of flexibility in our document for this reason, and there's a lot of ways that people can access it. So I'm going to skip to the rationale so we can see what New South Wales says about that. So there's a lot of really good things here in this new updated syllabus. It's all about continuity and change, connecting cultures, times and regions. Students develop a deeper understanding of music. They draw on histories, practices and technologies and personal experiences to perform. I like that I don't really have a system in my highlighted colours. It is really just random. So don't read anything into the colours. Green, I've definitely liked. So I liked that in terms of developing literacy, it's musical literacies through singing and playing instruments and improvising and composing, through reading notations, recording, analysing and appreciating music. All of it is very much an integrated way of learning, which all of us, I'm sure, are 100% on board with. Engagement with the expressive, cultural and aesthetic value of music enriches students' musical understanding, supports them to appreciate music more deeply, enhancing creative thinking and expression. So there's a lot of this aesthetic kind of value put on this, but also in terms of educating the whole person, they're really emphasising, the effective cognitive, psychomotor, personal, social competencies that are explored through the study of music. So I thought I like that side of it. The aim of it, we've got a couple of smaller dot points here. It enables students to develop musical knowledge, skills and literacies for active engagement. Experience the creative process, which I like very, very much, because it really does lean into more of this, let's experiment as much as possible in the classroom. And develop a lifelong sense of wonder and curiosity about and engagement with music, which is just beautiful. When would you ever say a syllabus document is beautiful? But there are certain things that are really, really lovely about this. Okay, so I'm going to go as fast as I can. I don't actually see a timer up, but I'll just keep going.
We've got 5 minutes left, Chandra.
Really? Oh, okay, right, I better go fast. Okay, so there's a certain caveats with this, and that's the repertoire requirements. So in each stage of learning, we need to kick these five kind of broad areas. However, they don't need to be represented proportionally in teaching. So it's really up to the teachers how much they want to focus on one specific stream of repertoire. And you can do it all within the context of, one topic. You can hit like 3 or 4 different areas of repertoire as well. The other thing on here that I wanted to point out, which Chris also showed in his document as well, is the different ways that they recognize notation. That it's not just about the typical Western notation, that it's about documenting music digitally, pre-notation, graphic notation, notations drawn from global music cultures, braille, scores, charts, leadships. There's so many opportunities here for diverse learners to really find ways to notate what they're writing and what they're composing, what they're improvising, without needing to have that hefty study of musical language in Western art traditions. Going on very, very quickly, we also have this balance of content section, which I think is a really nice touch that New South Wales has, which really just explicitly says that the content that we have is not necessarily indicative of the amount of time spent on a class. So there's no, 10 hours need to be on this, 10 hours on that. It's up to the teacher to make their professional judgment in terms of understanding their students and the time they need to demonstrate expected outcomes. So, and it's nothing hierarchical about how our content is grouped. I should also, before going any further, because I probably skipped over that a little bit, but the way that we have it, we have our 3 areas: performing, listening and composing, through the idea of music in practice, music in context, and the elements of music. in reality, like, yes, you can have music in practice and in context, but it's all just so embedded within music making that, to me, the reading of this is document. I'm looking more towards creating activities that encompass all of those things rather than one aspect of that curriculum specifically. All right, so if we flick deck down to some outcomes, this is where there was a lot of discussion about this as this was being drafted. There's a lot of outcomes in this syllabus. However, there's a lot of content points. However, a lot of it can be really broad, can be really interpreted in a lot of different ways. You've got the particular requirements of this syllabus, like the repertoire, the outcomes, and having 100 hours. But the openness is your choice of repertoire, the balance of outcomes and the content, and how much you want to emphasize on one specific content point versus others, the sequence in which you do things, and how you choose to assess things as well. So I highlighted a few things as you went through, because there's a lot of kind of stipulations of how to do it. I recognize Chris was talking as well about the ICIP, which we've got in our syllabus now as well. And again, that's going to be a learning experience for a lot of people, but even just like, you know, twiddling around with our syllabus, our programs at the moment, it can be kind of hit fairly quickly in including local musicians to come in and do workshops with their kids, talking about it. It's exactly the same kind of ethical ideas I find when we're talking about sampling music and honouring the owners of the original creators of those tracks. So that's kind of how I'm viewing it, and how the students at my school are starting to talk about intellectual property when it comes to either cultural property or just the you know, individual property of a sample. So yeah, there is so many outcomes that it's just going to be a flick through. So going back to this earlier part of the course, or is it over here? Performing, where is it? Focus areas, here we go. This is our broader statements when it comes to performing activities, listening activities, and composing activities, which we can do throughout this syllabus. The things that I've highlighted are the ones that I really think that's the thing that's going to be creating authentic music making, experimenting, interpreting. Listening is developed through interaction with a wide range of musical genres and styles. So really pushing the envelope with kids, but also that it's integrated with how they are reflecting on their own performances, reflecting on their own improvisations, engaging and experimenting with a wide variety of media and technology. How am I going for time?
Yeah, that's about
Pretty
it.
close. That's about it. All right. I figured I'd be getting close anyway, but yeah. Yeah. It's a big document, but yeah.
It is a
think we
big
got the
document.
gist of it there, and I'm seeing that as we go. Thanks, Chandra. As we go, that idea of just looking for opportunities for the sorts of things that we as a community have been jamming on and that we value. There's lots of really and as one of our commenters said, there's lots of wiggle room for you to do good work in there, and for you to adapt and adopt, and using pedagogical reasoning, pedagogical judgment. So it's some really and just so cool to highlight those words and see them jump out. So thank you. We had just Chris for a moment was just a bit concerned about let's see, ICIP. That's a good point. What is ICIP?
Oh, that's the intellectual and cultural property of
Yes.
Indigenous, like First Nations communities.
That's a lot of
So
letters.
that's kind of the term they've started to use in all of our syllabus documents. Like I know in HISI they've got the same kind of term that they're starting to use.
Okay. Pete, thoughts?
Yeah, I liked how you put on some glasses there, some fresh glasses, about the performing, listening, composing, and how they're all embedded with each other. And that resonated with us and how we approach music making as well. Not necessarily cornered off in this is a listening opportunity, this is a composing opportunity, this is a performing, but actually thinking of them as integrated is something that was in the former syllabus, and we can kind of see it in a similar fashion in the new syllabus. So that's exciting. And this sort of stems out of extensive two reviews that everyone got to have. And the first one was not so much like that. And so we had to pull it back a little bit as a community of practitioners. And so this is what we're seeing now is from 2 reviews. So hopefully it's more in line with what everyone actually valued in the year 7 to 10 syllabi. So that's what resonated with me. Anything from the community? Or should we move on to the next state?
Yeah, I'm ready. Thanks, Chandra.
Oh.
Welcome.
Who's up?
Well,
I'm getting a real sense of geography here, Peter.
yeah, good. Well, let's do the drum roll. Who is it? Oh,
Vic. Oh, just before we
Victoria.
go on, is that a mandated 100 hours in 7/8 now, or the opportunity for 100 hours if a child elects? Mandated, Pete, right?
Mm.
Yeah, you have to. Otherwise, somebody from the government comes to your house, I think, and remonstrates or something. Yep. All right. So, Victoria. Hey, Rob.
Hey, how are we?
We're excited to hear, as we often hear, that everything's better in Victoria. So we're excited to find out.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a tough act to follow, these 2 presentations, because I have not done as much detailed work as the other 2, but I have had a good look, and I want to share my interpretation of the syllabus and the options that I can see within it to deliver a program that's meaningful for kids, and essentially interpret it so I can squeeze it into the limited time frame that I've actually got,
Brilliant.
which is tiny.
Well, let's give you the floor then. Go for it.
Fantastic. Okay, so Victorian curriculum. It is 2.0 and it's currently been implemented. For maths and English, this year is the full implementation. For all other curriculum areas, it must be implemented next year, but we can implement it from this year moving forward. And it's basically the Australian curriculum with a Victorian skin on it. So there's lots of similarities between Queensland and this one here. So what I'll do is I'll go through the rationale and aims and what I enjoyed and what I got out of it. Basically, the yellow highlight is interesting. Blue is like, as Brad would say, a very exciting statement. So, music. Students participate in music learning individually and collectively as listeners, composers, and performers. Music learning is embodied learning. So for me, that is practical, that is hands-on, that is getting up, participating, and doing and moving. That is not handing out a worksheet and saying, complete this on note identification. I want my students to be engaged in the learning, okay? It has significant, unique impact on the creative, sensory, motor, cognitive, emotional, socio-cultural, and personal competencies of students. I think I heard that exact sentence somewhere else, pretty close to it. What I love is this sentence here. Engagement with music from diverse settings develops an understanding that the same music can be deeply moving for many people and yet have different meaning for each. I love sharing context with music with my students. I love sharing the stories behind why they were written, how were they written, the stories behind it and the emotions that the composers were trying to share. So, music is a significant element in the diversity and continuity of local and global cultures, particularly the cultures of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Through music, they express connection to country and place, challenge the impact of other cultures of their ways of knowing, being and doing and becoming, contribute to the global community and advocate for change. So through music, students contribute to the global music community and advocate for change. I love that. I think that's really empowering. So down here, students, active participation. So in a music class, it needs to be actively participating, not a passive teacher, passive student, do the work. There needs to be active engagement in music. Through performing, composing and listening. Not reading about composing, not reading about a performer, but through actually doing it and listening with intent to music, students have access to knowledge, skills and understanding that can be gained in no other way. I found this one really interesting. Learning in the music curriculum is orally based and can be understood without any recourse to notation. I think this is really important at year 7, 8, when you've got 20% of the kids that are learning instrumental music and 80% of the kids that like music but have had no prior experience. And you need to engage all of them in your program. Yeah. And to do that, I need to make sure the processes and the tools I'm using are accessible to everyone. I don't want to sit there and do rhythmic dictation or, key signature identification. It's not appropriate. It's not orally based. Yeah. So my whole point when I'm reading this, I want to make sure that it's inclusive regardless of where students are. Students increasingly value the power of music and its ability to transform the heart, the soul, the mind and spirit of individuals and communities. I really like that. And it just reminds us that we are working with the human condition here and young people. So the aims, I think this is almost identical to Queensland. Confidence to be creative, innovative, thoughtful, skillful. Skills to listen, improvise, compose. Respect for music. Understanding of music as an oral art form. All right, so moving on, we're talking about levels years 7 and 8 at the moment. So in years 7 and 8, learning in music builds on each student's prior learning and experiences. So number one, we've got to find out what are the experiences of the young people. What have they done in the past? What do they enjoy? What have they not enjoyed? And we do this by asking questions. We need to know our learners so we can deliver content at the point of need for our learners based on their past experiences. Students learn in and through the music practices of listening, composing and performing. They use their music knowledge and skills in purposeful and creative ways to combine and develop their connection with and contribution to the world as composers, performers and audiences. I love this down here. They work individually and in collaboration with peers and teachers. I read this as informal learning. They're having a jam with their mates. They're doing what popular musicians do in the real world. They're, participating in music in a fun environment. I look at this collaboration with teachers. It's not formal education where I'm going to print off a score, put it on their music stand and we're going to play that. No. We're going to work as a team. It might be like a coach and a band kind of process. But I really love the flexibility between formal, non-formal and informal approaches to working within the classroom. Students explore music in multi-arts, transdisciplinary or hybrid forms. This is brilliant. So we can look at film scores. We could look at theatre productions with dance and drama. I love this hybrid form. We could run LED video walls or projectors. You could have a camera with audio reactive shaders getting triggered by the frequency response from the music happening. There's all sorts of flexible approaches to delivering this curriculum. It's really fun and exciting. Well, this is the way I'm reading it. So I like interpreting it this way. They take opportunities to engage with living composers and performers and expand their awareness of the diversity of music practices, genres and styles. So in 7 and 8, the focus is on students exploring and responding to music through listening to and evaluating their own music practices. Once again, it's all about the kids. Developing practices and skills through creative practices and diverse skills for listening, vocal or instrumental performance and composition in music genres of styles and interests. I think this is brilliant. Through music genres or styles of interest. So we've got to work with the kids. What are they interested in? What do they want to do? What music is viral at the moment? I can tell you right now, we're doing a lot of K-pop Demon Hunters, and I'm sure we're all aware of that at the moment. But if that's what they're interested in, let's use this as a vehicle to teach the concepts, and that's where you're going to get the most engagement. And I love it that it's actually stated in here as well, because at the end of the day, it's all about the kids. And if we can engage them in something that they're interested in, that's half the battle. So, developing practices and skills. Apply knowledge of music styles or structures in compositions, developing interpretations of music composed by others, and evaluating their own performances. I love this one here, composing in forms and genres. And this is where I get my sound production hat on and I start thinking about digital audio and music production, where we've got the flexibility to deliver composition, music production, arranging, reimagining, remixing, re-editing, mashing up, you name it, and developing interpretations. It's fantastic using the digital tools as appropriate. So we've got a lot of flexibility to work within this space. I can't see the time, guys. How are we going?
Just 1 minute left.
Oh my golly gosh. Okay, let me zip down. I'm sure I've got some more blue points down here. Oh, this was an interesting one. The ICIP. And this elaboration, investigating when, how, and why copyright and or Indigenous cultural intellectual property rights may be relevant to their practice. So the way I'm reading this is we could talk about copyright and the copyright involved in a piece of recorded music and who owns what, or Indigenous cultural and intellectual property rights that might be relevant to their practice. I don't know if that's a loophole there and I'm interpreting it incorrectly, because I, like Chris, I am going to need to upskill on ICIP and delivering this to my students. So I'm not looking for loopholes, but I did find that. I'm sure Brad will be able to point me in the right direction if he thinks I'm doing something a bit curly. Anyway, here we go. Developing practices. Once again, experimenting with digital tools or creative effects. So I love this. So digital tools could be a mixing console, effects running through it, you name it. Let me scroll down. Creating, we've talked about documented and recordings, and presenting. Once again, it's all about performance skills, and it's all about, for me in my classroom, getting kids up, engaging and doing gigs, because at the end of the day, it's all about the gig, and that's where all of this information and these elements are embedded into that practice.
That was amazing.
Incredible.
I think really, we're beginning to understand the scope of this project, which is really, it's an orientation too, isn't it? And nowhere near getting into the nitty gritty, but I think it's, for me, it's doing the job that I hoped it would do, which is to get me really excited about being a music educator and seeing lots and lots of uplifting language in our syllabi. So thanks, Rob. Peter?
Yeah, there's lots of similarities across the two states that we've covered already. I really appreciated the embodiment reference you brought up.
Yeah.
And music is a human doing. Thank you, Christopher Small. I feel like that's really exciting. Makes me want to move to Victoria. And it's also helpful. The whole thing, what we're doing today is, can we talk to each other? And I feel like we can. There's lots actually we can talk about and not feel like we're from a different planet. We actually got very similar spirits behind each syllabi. So that's exciting. And the ICIP thing is something that I think we could have a whole session on. But yeah, the idea of respecting respecting Indigenous copyright and ensuring that we're respecting the local people is something that we need to be definitely upskilling ourselves on. Yeah, particularly in New South Wales, there's a lot of focus on it at the moment.
Yeah, and I like I said, it's the one area where I need to develop some content and go and research and really get a lot more comfortable with it. I'm after being a vet trainer for a long time, I'm perfectly fine teaching copyright as a curriculum, but when it comes to specifically ICIP, it's I'd love a lot more information and resources about that.
Yes. All right. We'll put a pin in that for future jams and symposia. I think that's coming across this afternoon. So we've got next jam set aside for more jamming on this if required. I feel like I need to go back and watch the whole thing again and take much better notes than I have today, and have an opportunity to chat. And I think there's just so much that we can get out of today. So thanks, Rob. That's I like your syllabus. And I'm not sure, I spent a bit of time there thinking, is this the syllabus or the delivery of this presentation that I'm enjoying? Yeah, but it was good.
Or the interpretation.
Yeah, and I like that you're willing to look for opportunities to wriggle. So, hooray! Thanks. That was really inspiring. Okay, so Peter, just before you decide to move to Victoria, well, it's not too much further to our next state, but we did make. I think we all know which one it's going to be. But I did make a nice slide. So if we could have a look at the slide. Oh, sure. So as the curtain closes on that.
Whoa!
Yes.
Who would have thought?
The moment at least one of us has been waiting for. Josh.
G'day, everyone.
Hooray.
Welcome to South Australia. It's pretty okay.
Let's have a look at your syllabus. We'll give you 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, sure. Well, just getting into it, I think Chris has done a great job of outlining our curriculum, the Australian curriculum, in many of its facets. So although we don't speak the same language in football, we do with curriculum. So that's really cool. Nice. But I was really, when I first set out to do this, perhaps I'll give a bit of context, I was really keen on sharing our new syllabus, the South Australian curriculum. But then I hit a snag because we're at prototyping phase. I am not allowed to share it outside the department. But I may just give you a bit of a context. We're moving towards the learner profile at SACE. So that's really thinking about holistic education, going beyond assessment data, and thinking about the whole person through assessment and their learning journey. And that's actually filtering down to our South Australian curriculum. And if I am a little bit cheeky, this will be some of the things that we'll be considering. This is being rolled out to maths next year plus one other subject, and there is talk about it being music or arts in our school, but we haven't landed that yet. So I guess just to start, the difference is where we're heading as to where we are now. So both curricula aim to develop students' musical skills and understanding, but they differ on their emphasis on cultural engagement and the approach to performance and creative skills. The SA curriculum prototype places a stronger emphasis on cultural sensitivity, empathy, and learner dispositions, with the understanding that these are the building blocks for future success across all learning domains. So you can see that we're really heading in a multidisciplinary approach to education within our schools. But because we're still on ACARA version 9, I'll read through it and give you my take on it. Essentially, at Adelaide Botanic High School, as a new school, looking at perhaps different We often use the word innovative, but I prefer different approaches to education. We were freed early on from sticking to curriculum. We were told to, or instructed to, think about the outcomes first, and then map those. The journey is then mapped to the curriculum, looking for how that fits to the curriculum. So that way we are really thinking about flexible design, meeting the needs of our students. And hopefully I can describe how we might do that in this. So at the top here in the band level descriptions for year 7, 8, music builds on each student's prior learning experiences. Students learn in and through. I like that, like learning through music. Education through music is something I'm really big about, learning life lessons through the act of musicking. There's lots of benefits for everyone, regardless of your engagement or levels of engagement in music. So anyway, learning through the music practices of listening, composing, and performing. They use their music knowledge and skills in purposeful and creative ways. So emphasis on purposeful, thinking about who we're teaching to, why are we teaching, and what are we teaching. And continue to develop their connection and contribution to the world as composers, performers, and audiences, but also perhaps citizens. I thought this one work individually and in collaboration with peers and teachers. Awesome collaboration. Being amongst community is so a really important thing with our approach. That is a peach color because we're all peachy. Students explore music in local, regional, national, and global contexts, such as used in multi-arts, transdisciplinary, and hybrid forms. So this has come up quite a bit today. And this is I guess the gate or the doorway to trying new things and trying unique and novel ideas in the classroom. So thinking about multi-arts, transdisciplinary, and hybrid forms, thinking about what musicking is, rather than teaching skills-based approach to learning music. I find they take the opportunities to engage in living composers and performers. Now, I've highlighted that red because one of the concerns for me is about access. Not all schools can give access to living composers and performers. We do have issues where schools are technology deserts. So there's still a moment for me to go, yes, but how do we get around that? As we move further down, exploring and responding to music and music practices across cultures, times, places, and other contexts. So still thinking about what is musicking, what are the contexts that we're framing our learning experience through. And while we're doing this, listening and evaluating, so thinking about the evaluation side of that, particularly as a reflective practitioner, what are we doing artistically? The diversity of music through created by First Nations Australians, and how this work demonstrates respect for Indigenous culture and intellectual property rights is, I think that's a really important one as we progress into a more holistic approach to learning. I think particularly culturally through the arts and through music and storytelling, we have a lot to gain and learn from our First Nations peoples around how they transmit, disseminate deep learning and knowledge in non-verbal ways through ceremony and rites of passage and things like that. So I like that passage a lot. Developing practices and skills, creative practice skills, listening, including oral skills. So yes, this I highlighted because yes, we're learning music and we need to learn music through skills. It is a skill, but I also think what I liked at the end here, and or styles of interest, interpreting and manipulating elements of music. So, and or styles of interest. So again, coming back to thinking about who are we teaching and what are we teaching, what are we teaching them, and what's going to engage them in the act of musicking is really important and high priority for me. Going further down, I guess composing in forms and genres such as songwriting, solo and ensemble instrumental music, music production, arranging, or reimagining and developing interpretations of solo or ensemble works for performance. Really stand out for me. I haven't highlighted it blue, but the reimagining and developing interpretations, I would grab that and really put that across all formats of music, whether not just solo or ensemble, but thinking about music engineers and technology and how we use technology to reimagine our music. And then by the end of year 8, students analyse how the elements of music and or compositional devices are manipulated in music they compose, perform, and or experience. So thinking about how they're being informed, reflecting on that and how that helps them with their own praxis or practices. They describe respectful approaches to composing, performing, and responding to music. So perhaps in here describe, so thinking about students and how they engage with art and how that can they use their knowledge and their own understanding from their own personal context and lived experience to talk through respectfully about other people's artwork. Students demonstrate listening and oral skills when composing and performing. So I think that this was blue for me because we do not have to sit at a table and put on the headphones and run through major and minor fifths to enact our oral skills. So we can go a lot further with that, and it is actually a doing thing when we're performing and composing music. They notate, document, and or record music they compose. So for me, looking at this little passage here, thinking about traditionally, Western art form music and notation. In here, it's also and or, so it's not a must. It's a here are our options. We can record in other ways within that. Moving down, I think we've got the strands. So exploring and responding, I'll just speed run through some of this. So listening to and evaluating how elements of music are manipulated in music, composed by a range of composers with the intention of drawing attention to social issues and values. So I think that this is really helping students gain global understanding, global perspective of where they sit as an artist. And then further down in this, researching and discussing the influence of social, cultural, and historical development relating to specific styles, forms, or traditions, and incorporating these into their performance and composition. So it's not just an investigation and taking that and understanding and saying, yes, I understand. It's about applying it into their own context as well. So whatever that area of interest is relevant to them. Moving further down, exploring, investigate the diversity of music composed and or performed by First Nation artists, considering culturally responsive approaches to Indigenous cultural and intellectual property rights. So that has come up a lot, which is great. And then moving forward, so we've got perhaps some examples here, exploring ways that First Nations Australian composers and or performers communicate their ideas, messages across communities and cultures. So thinking about how are we connecting, who we're connecting to culturally and amongst our community. I think it was really quite a special moment there in that. And then another blue bombshell for me, exploring how protocols for protecting Indigenous cultural and intellectual property rights exist to help students make ethical choices about how they use music as listeners or creators. Okay. So yeah, how much time? I think I'm out of time, aren't I?
We are.
Yeah,
sadly.
Sorry, I didn't get through
There's so
everything.
much good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks
we
for
got the
presenting.
gist. Yeah, we got the gist. We got some throughs and we got some mays rather than musts. And and so, well, we did it. Holy heck. in just 10 minutes over when I realised that 4 times 15 is 1 hour and we were never going to bring this in on time. Whoops. Never send a bass player to do the time mathematics. But we do have time to say thanks to all of our presenters. That, well, it's an historical moment, don't you think? I'm not aware of this ever happening before. And for us actually to come together as practitioners almost nationally and look at this, each of our syllabi with a view to digging out the gold and find things that we can, as music educators, as classroom teachers, to go, yeah, man, this is cool. This is worth getting out of bed for in the morning, and I can do good with my students in collaboration, Rob. In collaboration with my students. So I think I've got lots of re-watches to do. I'm sure you have too. It's just, yes, I think I've got just blue bombshells going off all over the place in my brain as we speak. So, yeah, enough for me. I want to go back and have a think about it. I want to celebrate that we've come together in an historical event. And that's pretty cool. It would have been really hard for this to happen, probably pre-pandemic even. And some of the, just the way that we were able to share screens and chat and do all of that stuff today, I think is really encouraging and quite exciting for where we might take our practice in future.